Welcome back. He's back. He came back. I didn't know he had that plan. But we're back.
I welcome me back to you.
Yes, it's good. So he's been on hiatus for like feels like a month, but I guess it's been
a few weeks.
Close.
Couple of weeks, few weeks, yeah.
What'd you do? Where were you?
I was on a crazy retreat.
Oh.
I got enlightened. I've been blessing people for like 3 weeks.
Oh.
And, had sex with the squid. I'm good.
Oh, that's strange.
Yeah.
All right.
It was strange.
So, anyway, welcome.
I'm just kidding.
This is, believe it or not, this is our 30th episode of Core Living. It's been a long journey, done 30 weeks straight, and I think we might be changing the format where we will be recording these not live. I'll continue to still do my other stuff on Twitch live, and I will probably, if I can, post this stuff on Twitch. But you can still always check us out on YouTube and watch. You can watch us there. So we appreciate your support. You can check us out there. But tonight, before I just tell you what the subject is about, I want to tell you a story. And you will probably remember this story, but it's to get into my point. Anyway, a long, long time ago, when I was a much younger, naive man, right before I got married, I did what most people do before they get married, and I have a bachelor party, which you probably remember. And it was a typical bachelor party. Went out, and we went and got sloshed at a bar, and then and then somehow, maybe you can help me remember this correctly, but on the way back, for some idiotic reason, we got into
a philosophical, theological debate.
Some religious debate. And this was back in, my high fundamentalist Christian days, and hilariously enough, how ridiculous, we're at a bar getting smashed, and then at the end of it, we're going to be talking about God and religion.
If you remember correctly, I was begging everybody to stop talking about it. I was like, guys, this is a bad idea. We're hammered. We shouldn't be talking religion. There's like 3 things you can't talk about: religion, politics, and something else.
Yeah, so anyway, I don't remember much of it, but anyway, this carried on the whole trip home. We get home, and then I think it was you, me, and one of my best friends, and he had brought in someone with him who we kind of knew, barely knew, and he was really pushing the conversation. And, we were on the side, we were more on the spiritual side, talking about God and stuff like that. And he was more on the scientific side. We're both trying to tell each other how, the other one's, wrong for what they believe or not right. And me, like the studious Christian that I am, in Christianity, I don't know if you know it, there's this thing called, what do they call it? Apologetics, which is all about studying the defense of the faith. So, I do what all good Christians do. I go and I get all my confirmation bias and I learn it all up for all the questions that are going to get asked to challenge me. And then when it comes, I blurt it out. And as I was doing that, and not looking at the person I was talking to, I got a swift punch to the face, knocked right out, like it would have been one of those epic YouTube videos, like boom. It was not a good end to a night. And I don't know, the situation got diffused. I think you escorted the guy out of the house.
I definitely tackled him down. Tackled that guy down.
Yeah, that was crazy. But I say all that to get us into the subject of tonight, which is beliefs. And a story like that can really show you how your beliefs can really influence what you do in your life, how you react, and go about your day-to-day life. Now, before we just chatter on up, I just want to throw a definition out there for you, okay? So just quickly, here's the Webster's dictionary, which likes to like break it down into like a couple like 3 jotted points. So one would be a state of habit of mind in which trust or confidence is placed in some person or thing. And it goes a little deeper. It says something that is accepted, considered to be true, or held as an opinion. And then another step deeper, a conviction of the truth of some statement or the reality of some being or phenomenon, especially when based on examination of evidence. Now, I think that's the Webster's definition. It does a pretty good job of breaking it down, but I'll let you throw your 2 cents in here when I read this one, because I did a ton of studying this week, and this one to me was like the best definition. It said, belief is a mental attitude or acceptance towards a proposition without the full intellectual knowledge required to guarantee its truth. So now, after I've said all that, what would you like to throw in?
Pass.
No,
the topic is belief.
Belief,
right?
Beliefs. Well, beliefs, believe it or not, combined when you throw them all in, that's a web of beliefs creates what we call ideology. Ideologies. So we have these ideas and concepts which we gather in our examination or what we're told about what reality is.
You're doing a lot of this.
Sorry, I don't know. I'm
feeling
energized tonight. Maybe this is late
coffee.
The late coffee I had. Shouldn't have had it. I'm gonna be up all night. So we gather all that information and then we make conclusions about how we think reality is. The only problem with that is that it's hard to come to a conclusion without the entirety of everything to make that like a concrete absolute. That's the way it is. So what do you have to say after all that?
I don't know. Say the last part again.
I was just saying that we make conclusions about what we think the truth is without all the facts in place.
Right.
And this gets us in trouble, right?
Well, it could, but at the same time, I think all these beliefs that people have, that they're kind of operating in their lives and stuff like that, they work as an anchor. They ground you to something. If you're beliefless, what are you?
Yes.
If you believe in nothing, then just what the heck are you? And so, that sounds like a lot of gobbledygook, but essentially I'm a nihilist and I don't believe anything means anything anyway. But there are people that acquire measurable success by grounding themselves in some kind of belief system. If you don't believe in science, then you can't play the game of science. If you don't believe in spirituality, then you can't play the game of spirituality. Even within science, they're constantly changing things. Things are being erased and rewritten and rediscovered, and new concepts are constantly being observed. So when it comes to belief, what do I believe belief is? Perspective, I suppose. Lived perspective. You operate as a human being from a certain place
Well, we have different. Here's the thing: we have different perspectives. Even us looking directly into this camera right here, you know, I see it through my eyes. You see it through your eyes. It's a little different because the angle's a little different, right? Every perception, you know, that's the thing, is that we're seeing it through our perception, what we're getting, and you're seeing it through yours, and me trying to convince you that no, this is exactly how that camera's
maybe a better question would be, why do people believe what they do? Is it survival? Is it based on?
Well, I think you answered it all right, because I think people, we gather this group of beliefs together because, like you said, it helps us navigate reality. I would conclude that, like, I think beliefs are inevitable. Beliefs are inevitable. But what this points to for me is that without the entirety of the information being possible to have, if that is so, relinquish your firm grip on your beliefs. Just still have them, just release the grip a hair. Let go, because you might be limiting yourself by holding so firmly that you can't see anything else that is being offered to you. And this would probably go into a conversation we had about open-mindedness.
Right. You might be limiting. What did you say? You might be limiting your growth?
You might be limiting something that you can't see.
Okay, so you might be limiting your growth based on a belief that you have, but you might actually be cultivating growth by having some kind of consistent belief system.
Yeah.
So, again, coming from a nihilistic vantage point where everything's kind of everything and nothing is anything, I have to play devil's advocate. I don't have to, but I'm choosing to play devil's advocate in the sense that there's always an opposite side to the coin.
Yep.
And so, when it comes to beliefs, you could view them in a way that if you hang on to something, you are potentially limiting yourself, but you could also look at it as it might be the very thing that skyrockets you to some kind of objective perceived success.
It's definitely possible. You could, it could guide you down that path. I think maybe what should get some focus are, what are the beliefs, maybe this is wrong, but maybe what are the beliefs that help grow us in a positive sense, or what are the beliefs that help, that limit us negatively?
Depends on what you believe positive and negative are.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of boils down to the individual's experience and there are masochists out there. There are people that enjoy pain and suffering, and whatever path leads them to being whipped by a hooker in a hotel room might be what they want, but not what somebody else wants.
Yeah.
And then at the foundation of that, you're dealing with beliefs and conditioning and all kinds of different things. So, what standards do you hold for yourself, and why? If you do believe in culture and progression or something like that.
Well, for me, I would say is like anyone who tells me not to look at something. Like, this is the truth. Just don't, whatever you do, don't look over there. Because just hold this thing, like, get your little box of beliefs, hold on to it, and don't look through these doors, because they could hurt you or something like that. And they possibly could, but you can control someone. This is like part of like cult dynamics, is getting you to like not look at certain things. We need to cut you off from certain aspects of reality so we can keep you where you are, to keep you doing what you're doing.
Right.
So for me, that would be one of the limiting belief systems that holds you back. But it could be something as simple as telling myself, like, I'm not good at painting. I'm not good at painting. well, have you tried? How much have you tried?
Mm-hmm.
When's the last time you tried?
And maybe you're only saying I'm not good at painting because you truly don't want to paint.
Or maybe some kid when you were in grade 2 was like, that's a piece of crap. Yeah, and then from then on in, you were like, I'm not a good artist. I'm a terrible artist.
Right. But if you were, say you didn't want to paint, say you were like, I'm not good at painting. You built up this belief in your mind, but you wanted to paint. And then you hired a high-priced lawyer to dig through the books to prove to you that you are a good painter. You pay good money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they've convinced you. I mean, that's what a good prosecutor, defense lawyer does, is they dig, they manipulate, they don't necessarily manipulate, but they'll make the law reflect. The highest paid lawyers get paid to make the law make their either defense or prosecution rest. So there's a malleability, I think, with concepts, and some people are very good at this. Some people are, pushovers, and they're like a stick in the wind. They're influenced by everything that comes at them. But I think a robust ego and a robust self-aware consciousness would be one that is its own good defense lawyer. It's its own good. It doesn't matter. Like, look at the nature of reality. So many things get, like, morality seems to have changed. Laws change all the time over the years. So maybe truth changes.
Yeah.
Maybe even truth itself changes, and because of that, maybe you can unbelieve things that you thought were foundational.
Something you were pointing in a direction there is that your beliefs are so core to you that they wrap around your self-identity. They are ego builders. Your beliefs actually build up your ego.
Or tear it down.
Possibly, yes. Yeah, if you're in a mode of deconstruction, you're looking towards that. But I find we attach ourselves to as many beliefs to create that web inside of us that gives us that self-identity. So one of the reasons we might get so passionate about our beliefs is that when anything, like the foundational beliefs I'm talking about, the ones that are deep down in your core, when those get touched, that's when we get sensitive. That's what riles up. If you ever want to know how, your beliefs, what gets you angry? What gets you fired up when someone's like, that's horseshit. That's bullshit. But to you, it's not. To you, it's like, that's your truth.
Right. And what do you do if you encounter somebody that's imperturbable? What do you do if you encounter somebody that maybe doesn't even sit on the fence? They just literally are not offended by anything. They're accepting of all things. How does that make you feel? Somebody that doesn't pick a political side, or somebody that doesn't pick a religious side or a moral side to things. How does that make you feel? And what does that tell you about who you are and what maybe you believe at your core?
Well, I don't know. Maybe it might point that you're not so sure about your beliefs as you think you might be, because it might not bother you so much if you're like, that's okay, that's their opinion, or I find people who are very flexible and open-minded with their beliefs tend to be calmer. Usually, I don't know. I like, just from my personal experience, but they're not so sensitive. They don't get triggered so easy when something that they, deeply cherish just gets questioned in a conversation.
So if you come across some ineffectual, non-belief oriented kind of floating slug, some person that doesn't pick a side on anything, maybe that Jabba the Hutt slug of a human being,
that's not fair. I don't think.
Maybe that person is missing out on righteous fury. Maybe there's something to be experienced in life from having picked a side and staking your ground on something.
I think you can still. I don't think it's about. I don't think you have to be hardcore fastened into a belief system. I think like I said in the very beginning, beliefs are inevitable. You're gonna have to choose, and you're gonna make choices. What I'm saying is that hold them loosely. Don't be so definite. Just people think that if he doesn't believe in anything, he's just going to be crazy, and he's going to go around just he's going to be a hedonistic monster who just steals and has no rules or anything that's good about him.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the type of person that you're going to get when someone holds their beliefs loosely. I think like I would say that I'm sure if you probed me hard enough, I probably still have some hardcore belief systems going on. But I think I've loosened up over the years, and I didn't just all of a sudden be like, oh, okay, anything goes now. I can do whatever the hell I want. No, because we're still bound by laws and the reality that we're in now that is going to dole out the punishments. So you still, just because you're loosey-goosey or whatever, doesn't mean that you're just going to start doing whatever the hell you want, because there's still consequences to be paid.
Well,
you still got to go to prison if you steal.
Depends on how crazy you are. I mean, I've watched many interviews with Charlie Manson from prison, and he,
doesn't look like he's from prison.
This is like a paraphrase, but he's like, I'm not in prison, man. You guys are the ones in prison. Like, I'm free as a bird. This is like, I'm happy as a whatever. So it depends on how insane you are, which is why I think that, and how insane you are, you will label that depending on on what kind of thing that you are, like a zombie walking through the world, like some non-player character, disseminating and embodying. Like, has your culture infiltrated you and implanted in you beliefs about things?
Oh, for sure.
And if that's so, when you see a homeless guy that's like, putting his own shit in a pipe and smoking it and claiming to be enlightened and walking down the street blessing people, you might be, repulsed and terrified by that. But if he's in it, if he's in nirvana doing it, then you lose. You're friggin' loser. You're walking around angry, picking sides about stuff, beating people up. You're a proud boy. Then you're a fucking loser. You know what I mean? Like, there's an element of that to it that I think people just have this teeth-gnashing confusion about. Like, well, no, like they claim to understand insanity, and then they America downs depression pills by the metric ton. So belief, why don't you make your own beliefs? How about you decide what you believe for yourself, and then run the test, be a scientist like everybody kind of already is anyway, and see what works and see what's not working.
Yeah, so looking in, testing, finding out what works for you and in your day-to-day life, I think that's a good way to approach beliefs. Test it. I would say I'm an advocate for experience over belief, because your experiences are going to.
But your experiences are going to inform your beliefs. If you get attacked by, if a tiger jumps out of a bush and you're attacked by it, you're going to think bushes contain tigers maybe forever.
Yeah, but you also run into the situation of like. Your paradigm. If you're taught to see something through a certain paradigm and you have an experience, it doesn't mean, say I'm walking through the forest and I see a burning bush, someone might have just lit it with a match or something, you might have just arrived at the right time, but if you're trained in fundamental Christian beliefs and you see that bush through that paradigm of Christian thoughts and belief systems, you're going to think you just had a mystical experience that just revealed more of God to you, of the Christian God to you, right? Mm-hmm. So whatever paradigm you experience reality in, you're going to interpret it through that lens. It doesn't matter whether it's any religious belief or scientific belief. People, they tend to when they recount fantastical stories, it usually comes through whatever they've been, trained to think at that time, or whatever they've been, saturating themselves with.
Mm-hmm.
It tends to come through that situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. He agrees, and we'll end on that. He agrees with me. So, moving on. In the spirit of belief and fantastical beliefs, like always, I like to go through the archives, see what I could dig up in the spiritual world and community and scriptures and stuff. And this week, it was all about Scientology, because I've never studied Scientology. I had no idea what was in Scientology. All I knew as a kid growing up was that John Travolta and Tom Cruise were heavy into it. I was like, okay, that's all right. But then when I started, I watched, listened to a couple documentaries and stuff like that. It was really fascinating. I found the character. What was the guy's name that started?
L. Ron Hubbard.
L. Ron Hubbard.
I believe that's his name.
Yeah, that guy is a fantastical character. I think he was someone who just really wanted to be heard in life. He wrote a book called, I'm going to butcher this. Dianetics, that's it, yeah. And he is also, I think, to this day, still the Guinness book, the Guinness World Record holder for most books ever written.
And they were all science fiction.
Yeah.
Other than Dianetics and... I don't know. Did he write more than one Scientology book? Going Clear is.
I don't know. I think that's one. I think that's one of them. But he's got a ton of them. And part of actually being a Scientologist is that you have to read all his books, and there's over 1,000 of them. So that would suck to read 1,000 science fiction books.
Now's probably a good time to announce our book that we just came out with. We got a book.
No books yet. We're getting there though. We'll get a. You can join our cult. No.
Samsononianism.
But anyway, yeah, Scientology. I think at the core of it, everyone's like, what do they believe? What's the thing? And I think like as you move down the Scientology chain, eventually, like I was listening to. A Joe Rogan podcast where he interviewed who's the mother from what's that show?
Family Ties.
Something King of Queens, or is that it, or something like that? But anyway, she was heavy into Scientology. I wish I could remember her name, but she was in it for
Leah Remini.
Yeah, something like that. That's something like that. She was in it for like 30 years or something like that, ever since she was a kid. And you got to move down the chain. And she was like, eventually the day came where they brought her into a room and they were like, we're going to tell you like what it's about. And they give you like a briefcase and you got to open the briefcase and then you like read the story inside the briefcase. And it was all about like aliens from like 75 trillion years ago, planted, entities on Earth and volcanoes, and they exploded from the volcanoes, and now these extraterrestrial beings like make up you. They're like you. Really? It's something like that, and you have to like cleanse yourself of these like the evil parts of these beings that like create something to do. Really fantastical. Like
that's what Going Clear is. You clear out all the bad aliens.
Yeah, something like that, and that's what all that pre stuff you got to do. And she was like, it's crazy. It's like your classic cult dynamics where you pay your way up the ladder, pretty much. You have to, and that's why a lot of rich people do it and stuff like that. So you pay through, the scheme, if you want to call it a scheme. Maybe shouldn't say that. Maybe it's real, but probably not. But I don't know. Anyway, you pay your way up the ladder. Scientology has their hands in all types of stuff. They actually they do benefit things for like the police departments and stuff where they stay, and like that's why they won't charge them with certain things, because apparently there's been a lot of bad things that happen inside of their communities. But they do still to this day have some beautiful communities in the States. And I think in one of the documentaries I was watching, it had a road system going right through one of their cities, which they didn't want. They opposed that it would happen, but the government said, no, it's going to happen. And so they put up cameras like the whole way down the road just to make sure that no one was doing anything nefarious, passing by their community or going through their community. But I think Scientology is kind of losing its steam. I think it had its day, and it's kind of coming out.
It was trending, and now it's on the decline.
Yeah, like in the 90s, it was a real big thing, I think, for actors and stuff like that.
Well, maybe that's something to keep in mind to anything that's trending or some kind of movement of the day.
Yeah.
Maybe that legitimizes or delegitimizes a certain belief system as sustainability and consistency and, how long it lasts.
Yeah,
maybe, or maybe just old stuff is really hard to shake.
Maybe one of the reasons I kind of went with it, I watched that story on Joe Rogan, and we were talking about beliefs there, all night tonight, and I just found it interesting how, coming from an ex-cult member, she was saying, like, we believed so hardcore, you didn't want to not believe it. She said even though she knew it was like a bullshit story when she opened, the briefcase and read all that stuff, she didn't want to let it go. She'd been with it for so long, she didn't know how to, like, get out of it. And here's an even crazier story. Her mother, who was like a hardcore, like, all the way, went up the whole way in Scientology, she wanted to get out of the cult, but she didn't leave the cult because she knew her daughter, who was the one who was on Joe Rogan, would turn her in, and it wasn't till she quit that she quit with her. She waited for her daughter to realize that it was all fake before she was like, okay, I know it's fake. Let's go.
Right.
Because she knew that if she said...
But how many members of Scientology are there?
I don't know. I know that there were something like 300 billion.
Right.
So they have a
so
lot of money.
That seems like way too much. But
no, 300 billion? Think about how many famous actors. The girl from King of Queens, said she gave millions to them. Millions.
I think 300 billion is too much.
Maybe it could be wrong.
But the thing is that that's two people that walked away and said that it's fake.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of people out there in the internet world that believe in all kinds of different religions that two people could walk away from and say it was a cult and it was fake.
Yeah.
The biggest marker of a cult to me is that just typically when they run their course, one person at the top getting a lot out of a devout group of followers. Now, religion, or a belief system, or some kind of spiritual network, I don't know if that's the same thing.
I think, someone, Joe Rogan said it on his show, which I've never heard this before, but it sounded good. He said, the difference between a religion and a cult is that in a cult, there's one guy at the top of the ladder who gets all the money, and it's a pyramid scheme. And in religion, that guy's dead.
Right. Something like that, right? Like, like when Jesus was walking the earth, I'm sure that, like, whatever, or Muhammad or whoever, people likely, if they had the word back then, I'm sure there would be a huge cross-section of people who said, cult!
Yeah. And hey, it sounds like, we're being rough on religious folks, but don't worry, you can be just as ideological being in a scientific community,
sure.
Or agnostic, skeptic. If you pride yourself as a skeptic, you can still be
skepticism.
You can be ideological about being a skeptic. You can be, and people say, how can a scientist? He does everything. If you don't think there's corruption in science, you're not paying attention to it. Why are pharmaceutical companies? They probably. Like
voice your arguments in the comments.
Throw in the comments. Tell us how we're full of shit.
Explain why we're full of shit. but I don't know that like pharmaceutical companies need to be stapled to science in general, but I think that you can be religious about science.
To a fault. If you're a guy who comes up with a claim that everyone praises him for and says, that's fantastic. Oh, you've saved, you helped this, and then one guy's like, I think there might be a problem with that thing over there. They're going to be like, like they're not going to want to hear that side of the not always, but I'm just saying, I'm sure that's a thing. I think if we went through history, there's guys who were like, hey guys, what about this thing? Science over here. Like, wasn't that like Galileo? Who's the guy? Galileo, or the guy who invented the telescope?
I think Galileo was the guy that was looking up at the stars, and I can't remember exactly, but it may have been Galileo that was looking up at it, and the religious community came up against him because he was explaining a different understanding of celestial phenomenon.
I'm sure there were people that said, "Oh, we'll never fly. We'll never watch things on a screen. That's crazy. That's voodoo."
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that there's the naysayers just as much in the rational scientific world as there is in the spiritual community. It's just maybe packaged differently.
Right.
But
make your own belief. I think just believe your own thing. But if somebody were to come along and say, yeah, that's nice that everybody gets to just believe their own thing, except for that creates chaos. And don't you like order? Don't you like people falling in line and laws to be effective and everything like that? That's a good point too. But is your beliefs causing you torment? Is there something that might be more freeing and allow you to enjoy life a little bit more? How about you believe that? On an individual level. Whoever can hear, let them hear. Whoever cannot, enjoy your whatever.
Yes. Well, anyway, everyone, guys, I think we've gone long enough tonight. It's been a good conversation. It was great to have you back. So, if you like this show, don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe, and you can share that crap with your friends if you think it's worth listening to. I hope you like this stuff, and until next week,
stay spiritual.